Hey guys, it's me, Mrs. Vogel. I'm here again with a couple more chapters from our book, Ruby Holler. Thank you guys for joining me. Yesterday was a long chapter, wasn't it? It was called Gravy, and we learned a lot about Tiller. We learned that his patience for kids is not quite what it used to be once upon a time. We heard Dallas having a few issues with the well bucket. That wasn't very successful. And then Tiller started thinking about fires with the lanterns and him chopping off his foot with the axe. So his patience wasn't all there, was it? But when he did get together with Florida to work on the boat, we learned a little funny story, didn't we, about red paint? Do you remember that one? I remember the first time I read this book, I was in stitches laughing, because I could picture someone with a paintbrush going psh, psh, at the animals and having polka dotted animals everywhere. So I thought it was a hilarious story, and I hope you guys did too. We also talked a little bit about how they use silly names for food, and they use food as kind of a comfort thing when things aren't quite what they used to be. So Beat the Blues broccoli and anti-cranky crumpets, getting used to kids again stew, things like that. I think that's hilarious. Do you ever name your food anything weird like that? If not, there's your task for tonight. I want you to name your dinner tonight something really silly, and tell your parents you're eating something silly and see what they do. Let me know about that in the comments, okay? All right, so we're gonna read our next chapter. Chapter 14 is called Wood. A row of tiny wooden birds perched on the fireplace mantel, and a fleet of miniature boats rested on the top of the bookcase. Florida leaned close to one of the boats. "People can't touch these, right?" she said to Dallas. "I bet if people touch these wee little boats, they get their hands smacked." Dallas was nose to beak with one of the birds. "People maybe could touch them a little bit. They probably get shot if they touch these things." The screen door slapped against the frame as Sari entered from the porch. Both Florida and Dallas jumped back, stuffing their hands in their pockets. "Were you talking to me?" Sari had asked. "No, I wasn't talking to anybody but the air." "Me neither. Words were coming out of my mouth, but they weren't aimed at anybody in particular." "I thought I heard you say something about our birds and our boats." "Nah. What birds? What boats?" Sari slipped over to the bookcase. "These boats." She glided past the mantel. "These birds." "Well, I'll be. Look at those little birds and boats. You ever noticed those before?" "Can't say that I did." "Well, even if I had noticed them, I wouldn't have touched them. People ought to know better than to touch wee little fragile things like these." "Heck," Sari said, lifting up one of the birds. "They're not so fragile. They're made of wood. Here." She handed one of the birds to Dallas and one to Florida. "Golly, will you look at that? It's so smooth, and it's got little feathers carved in it and little eyes." "And mine's got wee feet and a wee pointy beak." Sari returned to the bookcase. "And these boats, they're pretty sturdy too," she said, passing one to each of them. "This one's got oars and seats. A little tiny elf person could row this boat on down the river." He tried to maneuver the oars. "Oops, oars came off. Oops, seats got a little mushed." As Sari stared at the broken boat, Dallas took a step backward and raised his arm as if to shield himself. Sari moved toward him and gently moved his arm away from his face. "It's okay." Florida inched closer to Dallas. She was balancing a boat on her head and squeezing a bird in her hand. Snap! The bird's beak drifted to the floor. "I didn't mean it!" she shouted. "I told you people you shouldn't touch them!" Florida shoved the bird and beak and the boat at Sari. "Go ahead, punish us. We don't care." "Punish? I'm not a very good punisher." She shrugged and placed the broken bird back on the mantel. "I break things sometimes too, and when I do, I try to fix them. We'll fix these later." She stood back, regarding the mantel. "We made these. Taylor made the boats, and I made the birds." "All by yourself? With what?" Dallas had asked. "You get a little kit or something in the mail?" No, we made the whole thing. From what? From wood. Well, where'd you get the wood? Look out there, Sari said, gesturing toward the window and the holler beyond. There are about 1,000,000 trees out there in Ruby Holler. That's where we get our wood. From regular old trees? From regular old trees. Florida rushed outside and slapped her hand against the maple tree which stood beside the porch. Like this one? That's right, Sari said as she stepped on the porch with Dallas behind her. Well, what do you have to do? Chop down a tree like this and then hack it up into a zillion itty-bitty pieces and... No. We don't chop down any trees. Look at that basket there. Dallas lifted a cloth off of a wicker basket. Inside were short pieces of tree limbs. We just find those just about everywhere. We pick the ones that speak to us. Florida eyed her. You think they talk to you? Like a crazy person thinks things talk to them? Not exactly. You just see a piece and you know that it wants you to pick it up and you know that there's a bird inside or maybe a boat. Dallas examined one of the chunks of wood. What? This stick thing? There's already a bird or a boat in here? He knocked one against the porch railing. How do you get it out? As he knocked it up against the railing a second time, the railing split. Oops. Tiller ambled around the side of the house. What's going on? Florida and Dallas stepped back against the house. Sari studied their faces. It's okay. She turned to Tiller. Tiller, I think Dallas might want to help you fix this porch. And maybe we ought to do some whittling tonight. Got any extra knives? What are you talking about, knives? What are you going to do with knives? You going to stab someone? Chapter 15, Conversations in the Night. Florida, you awake? Awake as an old barn owl. You remember when I had to get my picture taken for that passport thing? Uh-huh. Not the best picture. Your eyes were droopy. Well, you know what Sari said? She said that we had to go get my birth certificate, too, and I told her we didn't have a birth certificate. We weren't born, I guess. Well, of course we were born. We're here, aren't we? We just don't happen to have one of those birth certificate things in our pocket. But you have to have one of those to get the passport, right? Where are you going to get one of those? In a birth certificate shop or something? Sari said not to worry, that she talked with Mr. Trepid and he said he'd fix everything just fine. Mr. Trepid? That pitiful pincher? Hey, listen. You hear that? It's the train. Florida heard the faint wail of the freight train as it wound its way through the distant hills. As she pulled up the quilt close to her face, the train sounded so lonely. In the dark alley behind the Boxton Creek home, two men met. It was too dark to see either of them clearly, but when one struck a match, the light flashed off his gold tooth. Who was that? Do you remember anybody with a gold tooth? Here, he said, passing a wad of money to the other man. Just keep your lips zipped. The other man slid 2 fingers across his mouth. Zipped. He pocketed the money, turned, and crossed the railroad tracks. In the downstairs bedroom in the cabin in the holler, Tiller climbed into bed beside Sari and stared at the ceiling above him. It's weird having those kids up there. Were our kids that blasted clumsy? And did they eat that much? Sure. And I guess my brain pretty much forgot all that. Do you think we were good parents? Sari turned to look at him. Well, of course we were. Once we made our mistakes and got over worrying so much. Sometimes I think we were just getting really good at it when all of a sudden those kids were grown up and gone. Maybe that's why it seems easier to me now with Florida and Dallas. I figure we know what to expect and we know how to love kids. Tiller sat up. But I about died when we were trying to teach Dallas and Florida how to whittle. Now, I thought fingers were gonna go zinging off into the air. Whew. Did you see that robin Dallas made? That hacked up piece of maple he threw down the well? He sure was mad at that hacked up robin. And how about Florida's rowboat? Did you see that little thing she carved? Before she buried it? Yeah, I saw it. Looked more like a bucket than a rowboat. Remember our Charlie? When he got so mad at a piece of wood that he set it on fire, and then the porch got caught on fire. Oh yeah, I remember you trying to beat out that fire with my good jacket. And I remember me yelling at Charlie and then feeling so bad afterwards that I made 2 accept my apology pies just for him. And out of all our kids, Charlie turned out to be the one that's the natural carver. Outside, amid the chirps of crickets, a snowy white owl flew to the maple tree calling, "Hoo, hoo." Taylor, you know what Grace told me when Dallas and I were down in Boxton the other day, while Dallas was loading up the truck? What? She said that the trip is called Dallas and Florida Trouble Twins. Grace said maybe we ought to be careful. Maybe we've done a stupid cockamine thing, taking these kids in. Maybe we ought to take them back. Taylor, you can't send them back as if they were a pair of boots that didn't fit right. Here's what I think. That Dallas and Florida are no more trouble than most kids. And besides, you might not have noticed, but I think you're actually beginning to enjoy messing around in the holler with them. Don't you make that face at me. You don't have to admit it, but I know it. Taylor reached over to remove a piece of lint from Sary's hair. Well, if we do take these kids on these trips, and I'm not saying it's what we ought to do, but if we do, at least they won't be together. How much trouble could one kid be? We each ought to be able to manage one kid. But they feel safe together, like I feel safe with you. Is that a compliment you're giving me? It's just a thing I'm saying, that's all. Hear that? Dallas said. Sounds like an owl out there. He crept to the window and peered out. How come they call this place Ruby Holler? You seen any rubies yet? Dallas pressed his nose against the screen. Sari told me that in the fall, all those maple trees turn scarlet red, and all those red leaves look like a million bazillion rubies dangling on the trees. And she said that now, in the summer, right after the rain, all those leaves look like a bazillion shimmery emeralds. And in the winter, after an ice storm, it looks like a bazillion gazillion sparkly diamonds in the trees. Well, why don't they call it Emerald Holler then? Or Diamond Holler? Or Jewel Holler? Heck, I don't know. Dallas was staring into the blackness. I feel all bad, you know, that Sari bought me all that stuff and I'm not even going to go to use it. And she's going to have to go all the way to Kingadoon alone. I know. That old man lunatic, so proud of our boat. And he'll have to go all by himself all the way down a bunch of winding rivers. But we've got our plans, right? I mean, we're going to get on that night train, right? We didn't ask them to pay us. They wanted to pay us. It's not like we're stealing their money, right? Later, Florida tossed and turned, slipping in and out of dreams. First, she was fleeing rats and lizards, and then she was in a canoe on a narrow river, paddling hard. And then gold light filled up the whole sky and the river, and a golden bird swooped down and sat on her knee and spoke to her. It said, "Have you seen my baby? I'm missing my baby." Dallas dreamed of a leafy tree with the low-hanging branches. Nearby was a stream so clear that he could see every rock and every pebble on its bottom. He could see every stray leaf every little minnow swimming along. In his dream, Dallas crawled out from under the tree and went to the edge of the stream, where a spectacular silver bird hopped along the bank. The silver bird stopped in front of Dallas, cocked its head and said, "There is a place where you can go, where everything is." Is what? Where everything is what? But the bird never finished its sentence. Wow. So, why do you think these birds keep appearing in chapters? The silver bird and now a golden bird. What do you think the significance of these birds are? Do you think that Florida and Dallas still want to get on that night train? I mean, they've been planning this for 13 years. Do you think they're going to leave one day and just up and leave Tiller and Sari and lead them to be on their own on these adventures? Or do you think they're really excited about doing these adventures and they've actually grown to care about Tiller and Sari? Or do they care about them so much that they need to leave? There's so many things that could possibly happen in this story. I hope you're making some great predictions and you're looking forward to tomorrow's adventure. Till next time, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.